Apple Podcasts got a huge update in iOS 17.4, which are transcripts across all podcasts. Apple is auto-transcribing all the shows, or you can even upload a custom transcript to get things like speaker labels. But honestly, Apple Podcasts has been getting sneaky good over the last couple years, and I was a long-time Pocket Cast user. It's still a great app, has a lot of features that Apple Podcasts doesn't have yet. But if you want to try Apple Podcasts, these stats are from Buzzsprout, the second biggest podcast host right under Spotify, and it still has a slight lead in the amount of users that listen with Apple Podcasts. So I want to show you some of the reasons why I personally switched to Apple Podcasts for all my listening, and some tips to make the listening experience maybe a little more what you're used to. So the first thing you should know is you can actually import all the podcasts you follow in another app into Apple Podcasts. Let's say you use Pocket Casts, again, a great app, used it for many years. Go to the Profile tab here at the bottom right, and then go to the Settings. If you scroll all the way down, you'll see the option to export podcasts. This will create an OPML file, and this you can actually carry with you over into Apple Podcasts. I'm just going to save it to the Files app. We'll put it on our iCloud Drive desktop for now. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to import an OPML file either in the Podcast app on your iPhone or your Mac. But there is a shortcut. This shortcut I found in the Apple discussion boards, and here you can either copy the text from that OPML file or run the shortcut from the Share menu, and this shortcut will add all the shows from that OPM file to your Apple Podcast library. Technically, you could do all of that from your iPhone just by copying here and then running that shortcut, and all the shows you followed in the other app will be available in Apple Podcasts. Now, once you've followed all your shows, you'll find those in the Library tab in the Podcast app, and depending on what podcast app you came from, this is going to feel a little different. If you just want to see all the shows you follow, that'll be found here. Followed shows are all the shows where you've hit that little plus button and added it to your library. All podcasts are actually going to include shows where you've listened to an episode or maybe saved an episode, but don't directly follow the show. Now, one thing I struggled with coming from other podcast apps in Apple Podcasts was where do I go mainly to find episodes that are new and that I want to listen to? The Home tab, which is new in iOS 17.4, does a fairly good job at this. It will show you new episodes and you can scroll through them. Again, one of the reasons why I love Apple Podcasts now is this episode artwork. This is custom per episode. So primary technology, you'll see a different image here every episode, and you can just hit play and start listening to it. And there's little icons down here to let you know the episode is downloaded, how many minutes you have left, and you can even hit the 3 dots for options like sharing this episode or marking it as played. Another option is if you want to remove an episode from the Up Next here on the main Home tab, you can go over, hit the 3 dots, and just tap Remove from Up Next. Also, if you just want to see all the episodes in your Up Next queue as a list form, you can do that as well. But actually where I go to see any new episodes is the Library tab, and I go to Latest Episodes. This actually won't directly match that Up Next queue. Sometimes, like this episode, the latest one from ATP, I listen to most of it, and so it might get removed from that Up Next queue, but I still want to finish listening to it. So Latest Episodes is where I go to see all the podcasts I still have left. Now, the one behavior that makes this a little messy is if you want to add a new show. Let's say we want to follow Connected. I'll hit the follow button here, which means new episodes will be added to my library. It'll download the latest episode. But if I go back to that Latest Episodes tab, now that I've followed that show, what typically happens is now a bunch of episodes have been added to that Latest Episodes because they're all marked as unplayed when you first add a podcast. I wish this behavior was different in Apple Podcast, that it would just list maybe the latest episode as unplayed. So what I typically do is when I follow a new show, I'll go to my shows, let's find Connected, I'll hit the 3 dots here in the top right, and I'll choose Mark All as Played. This will make all those episodes now disappear from my latest episodes list, and then I'll just swipe on the latest episode to mark that one as unplayed. I just want that latest episode in my Up Next queue. It removed the download because I marked it as played, so I'll download this episode again. And now if I go back to my library and latest episodes, I'll just have one episode of Connected, and my latest episodes is now the queue that I'm looking for. Now, it won't add all those episodes to the Up Next queue on the Home tab, but again, I find the most reliable and consistent view for unplayed episodes that I want to listen to is that latest episodes part of my library. So that's why when I add a new show, mark all as played, and just mark the latest one as unplayed. Now, one other thing you can do here in the Library tab is actually create a station. Here I have a station called First Up, which are the newest episodes of my favorite podcasts. You can create a new station by clicking the 3 dots up here, choose New Station. You can call it whatever you'd like. Let's call it Podcasts About Podcasts. I'll save that. Now I have some options here. I can choose how I want to sort episodes of the shows I add to this. I'll do newest to oldest. I can group episodes by show. Let's choose that. For the episodes, you can choose just the most recent or maybe the most recent 2 episodes. Let's do that. You can choose media type, whether you want audio, video, or both. I want to hide played episodes, and now I can choose from the podcast in my library which I want to appear in this station. I'm going to have Clipped Show, Creator Science by Jay Klaus, great podcasts. We'll add The Buzzcast and a great new show by Justin Jackson, Podcast Marketing Trends Explained. So those will be the 4 shows we add to this station. You can see them here. You can also customize if you just want the most recent episode from a particular show, in addition to the entire station setting. I'll hit done, and now I'll see that station here in my library tab. And when I go there, I'll see the latest episodes from the shows that I programmed, podcasts about podcasts. Stations are much like playlists you'll find in other podcast apps and are a great way to organize your shows and episodes. You can also change what tabs you see here in the library by going to Edit Library. You can show or hide channels, show or hide downloaded or saved, and you can remove your stations if you'd like. We'd love to be able to add custom icons for each station. Just throwing that out there. Channels are where you find podcast networks like Relay FM, and you can see all the shows associated with them. And there are other recent updates like podcasts that are included with Apple Music or Apple News. Those are in those channels as well. And again, one of the biggest reasons I switched back to Apple Podcasts is just the design of the app has come such a long way. Shows can do custom show art, so it's not just the square image. You can have this full page custom artwork. You see the custom episode artwork here next to each episode, both for public episodes and paid subscriber audio, which I'll get to in a second. And when you actually play an episode, the Now Playing page looks great. Custom chapter artwork is available right here. And like I mentioned, transcripts, which were added in iOS 17.4, they just look amazing. They follow along as you're hearing the speakers. If you upload your own transcript via your podcast host, I use transistor.fm. What's up? You actually get speaker labels like I have here. So you can see my name and you'll see Jason's name when he speaks. And you can search the transcripts. So if you want to search for a term, like I know we talked about Steve Jobs and his MacBook Air keynote, it'll go right there to the transcript. I can use these arrows up and down to find every instance where we said his name. And if I tap that paragraph, now the podcast will jump to playing that section. I can also click the 3 dots up here, and I can view the full transcript just like I'm reading a blog post. Transcripts look amazing. I can click the 3 lines down here in the bottom right, go to another chapter, and you can see the colors of the background changed to match the custom chapter artwork for this podcast. Primary Technology, my tech podcast, I do custom chapter artwork every episode. Lots of chapters, and I just love how the colors match each custom chapter art. Now, for those of you who might use Overcast or Pocket Cast and really love Smart Speed, removing silences, that is something not available in Apple Podcast. You can change the speed, but honestly, I listen to every podcast at 1x, so the Smart Speed things is not something that I'm accustomed to. But the skip forward is an annoyance I have with Apple Podcasts as opposed to Pocket Casts. With Apple Podcasts, the maximum amount of skip forward that you can program here in the settings, if you go to Podcast, 60 seconds is the max time for skipping forward. And if you listen to a lot of podcasts, you know that ads are much longer than 60 seconds now. So in order to skip more than 60 seconds in Apple Podcasts, I actually created this shortcut, which the only action is skip forward by 120 seconds on the iPhone. I programmed that to the action button. So now when I'm listening to a podcast, if I want to skip forward 2 minutes, I just hit the action button and it skips forward. This way I can get whatever amount of time I want on that skip forward. And you can also program things for skip backwards. I also love this feature in Pocket Cast, which is to skip the intro of podcasts, but there's an option for that as well using shortcuts. Here I created a shortcut where I can choose a podcast from the menu, and depending on the podcast, I'll skip forward by a certain amount of seconds, skipping the intro for that show, and it'll start playing it in Apple Podcasts. If you want to learn how to build those shortcuts from scratch, I have a whole video on that. I'll link it above and in the description. Another thing Apple has improved on is adding new episodes to the queue, whatever you want to listen to next. So if I were to go to my latest episodes, it doesn't automatically have these in a queue, meaning it'll play from one to the other. But if I do want to add an episode to play next, I can hit those 3 dots, click Add to Queue, and now if I go to that Now Playing screen, go to that 3-line menu, you'll see episodes can be added here. And if you add multiple, you now see those multiple episodes here, and I can drag them up and down and decide what's going to play next when I'm done listening to this podcast. And you can also clear that up next queue if you would like. There's also a really great option to just play next. So if I want this episode to play right after the one I'm listening to, I can just choose play next. And now if I go back to my queue from the Now Playing screen, you'll see that one jumped up to the top of my up next queue. This has been vastly improved in recent versions of iOS and matches the behavior like in Pocket Casts. All right, last two things that I really love Apple Podcasts for. One are the built-in subscriptions. I like having all my digital subscriptions in one place, and that means podcast subscriptions as well. And signing up for a podcast subscription right here in Apple Podcasts is super fast and easy. You can offer month and annual subscriptions. For my show specifically, like Primary Technology, I find that even when offering a secondary option like through Memberful or Patreon, the conversion rate, meaning how many people actually subscribe and pay for the show, is vastly more directly in Apple Podcasts than using those third-party services. The feature is seamless here in Apple Podcasts, meaning once you subscribe to the show, you'll actually see a little banner called Subscriber Edition when you're paying for a show, and you get the ad-free versions just replaced by the public versions, and you don't have to follow a new feed or a new show. It just happens here in the podcast app. And then you also get access to bonus episodes. Like for Primary Technology, if you were to subscribe, you can actually just start listening to that right away. And you can see when someone tries to play a bonus episode, it automatically pops up that subscriber screen. And again, really easy to sign up. You can also offer free trials with Apple Podcasts, and we offer a 3-day trial so you can listen to some bonus episodes, listen to the ad-free versions, and double-clicking that, and you're signed up. That ease of sign-up and then the ease of managing subscriptions, especially if you support multiple shows, Apple Podcasts just makes that really easy. And finally, one other feature, if you want to save an episode, even from a show you don't follow, it's just something you want to refer back to later, hitting the 3 dots to any episode, you can choose to save episode, which is like bookmarking it. You see a nice little icon there for episodes that you've saved. And then in your library section, you can go to your saved episodes. And here I have episodes that I've listened to a long time ago. I have a couple here on grief that were just really helpful for me. And I like just leaving those bookmarked, and I can refer back to them. I have quick access to them if I want to share those episodes out. So saving episodes and referring back to that saved portion of the library, that plus the new Up Next queue, transcripts, and the overall design of the Apple Podcasts app, it's become my default. I do wish the behavior when you add a new show to your library and all those episodes are marked as unplayed, I wish that was different, and would still love just default options for skipping forward more than 60 seconds, skipping intros of podcasts. Oh, but I just remembered 2 more complaints, real quick. Apple Podcast show notes get cut off after 4,000 characters, which is kind of annoying. No other podcast app cuts it off, so don't cut off show notes, or move the maximum to like 10,000 characters, something like that. And if you actually support a show and subscribe like to Primary Technology, the chapters are stripped out of the episodes for subscriber audio. The MP3 I'm uploading has chapters, but they get stripped out by Apple on upload as it's processing it. So Apple, I know you know, but don't remove my chapters. If you have any questions about Apple Podcasts or tell me what your go-to podcast listening app is, drop it down in the comments below this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel before you go. New hardware should be coming soon, new iPads, which is actually where I edit all of my podcasts. If you want to learn more about how I edit podcasts on iPad, I'll put a video right up here. I use the app Ferrite. It's amazing. Check it out. And apparently YouTube thinks you'll really love this video, so you should watch that too. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.